my perspective, when you do these types of experiences, that you can't see where you're going. You have one truth. We want you to know one truth. You're standing in an airplane and you're about to jump out 15,000 feet to the ground. I don't want you to see anything else. I don't want you to experience anything else, because you'll have that going on in your head too.
Welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast, where we discuss the latest trends and challenges facing the attractions industry today.
We chat with some of the top leaders in the field and provide resources that will help develop your career in this great industry.
I am Josh Liebman. I am obsessed with the guest experience and helping attractions make that their top priority for success.
And I'm Matt Heller. I am passionate about organizational effectiveness, leadership development, and employee engagement.
Now sit upright, hold on tight, and get ready for the Attraction Pros podcast.
Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, Matt, I'm doing great, but how are you?
I am fantastic. How are you? Yeah, I already asked you. So yeah, that's how I am. Yes.
For those watching on YouTube, Matt also held his arms out and was pretending like he was flying.
Yes.
Which I'm guessing might tie into your question. I don't know, maybe not.
Well, actually, it brings up a different question.
Okay.
Have you ever had the dream that you are flying?
I probably have. If I did, it was probably when I was a kid. I would say, I think it would be really cool to be able to do that, just because we as humans can't. So yeah, whether it's like actual dreams or just like thought about it, be like, oh, it would be nice. What about you?
Oh, absolutely. 100%. Now, there might be a difference between the flying dream and the falling dream.
One's good, one's bad.
Yes, exactly. But as I've said before, I don't know if I've said it on the podcast, I do say it during the interview, my favorite superhero is Superman because he can fly. And I always have thought that would be something super fun. And I love watching those videos of people who do the base jumping. I call it the squirrel suit, although we're going to hear a better version of it, or a better description of it today, from James Jensen, who is the founder and CEO of a company called Jump. And they specialize in hyper-realistic simulations of wingsuit base jumps.
That was a really good way to describe it, of something that I was going to say, it cannot be described. You have to hear James describing it. He did pretty well. Yeah, so we're talking virtual reality. We're talking immersive experiences. So Jump is located in Salt Lake City, Utah. James, his career is just so fantastic. Jump opened within the last couple of years. Prior to that, he was the founder of The Void. So if you're familiar, they had partnerships with Disney and with Sony. So there was a fully immersive VR Star Wars experience, a fully immersive VR Ghostbusters experience, as well as a lot of other intellectual property as well. And we get to hear all about the Jump experience, virtual reality's impact on the world, and how fear is an illusion. That's just one of the things that we talk about.
Yeah. One of the other fascinating things that James talks about is his process. And again, like we've said many times, I don't want to give too much away, but he talks about kind of going into the future and thinking about what things will be like, and then kind of coming back and reverse engineering it.
Yes. And without giving more away, we'll just set it at that. Blew my mind. I love the whole idea of time travel in general. And apparently James is not the first one to do this. He learned who originally initiated this process many years ago. And we'll save that for when he tells us. We also talk about transformational experiences, because when we talk about something like attractions and the attractions industry and everything that we do, we talk a lot about what the experience is like within the confines of that experience. James talks about what it's like afterwards for people, and how this can be life-changing, and how this can be something that creates a perception of reality, even though it's virtual reality, but creates a perception of reality that they carry with them through the rest of their life.
And if you think this is just about the physical, it's not. It's also about the psychological. It's about the mindset. It's about so much more than just putting on a suit. So, is it time to get up on that cliff and jump off into this interview with James?
Only if you've got your wingsuit on.
I will get that and my crampons.
Hey, James, welcome to the Attraction Pros podcast. We are so excited to chat with you today. How are you?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for inviting me on.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. We're really looking forward to an exciting conversation, an exciting interview here. So, as we kind of get started here, can you just give us a little introduction? Tell us about your career history and your journey leading up to the founding of Jump.
Yeah, sure. My dad is a fine artist, and I actually grew up on a farm, but we won't go that far back. Um, so he taught me how to oil paint when I was really young, and then I got into doing some painting and illustration work for books and magazines and things like that. And then I found a computer which had an amazing feature called the undo button, which I fell in love with. And so that's kind of started my design career path. Worked for a couple of design agencies, and then ended up creating my own design agency. And I learned visual effects, computer animation for film and video. And in my own creative agency, we did some feature film work. I worked on Scooby-Doo 2 and a couple other films. And we did a lot of stuff with green screens and actors that were being composited in these real-time sets. And I was able to have that experience. And through that experience, watching actors and green screens, I came up with the idea for The Void, which was a walking virtual reality simulation company that I created. We had 20 plus locations worldwide with a relationship with Disney and Sony. It was awesome. I learned a ton, but I wanted to be in the computer when I was sitting on these green screen sets and the directors could see on the screen what was going on. Or like, I want to be inside the computer, like full on Tron moment. And I saw VR and what it could represent. And I was like, I think we could map a virtual world over a physical set. And that's where The Void came from, which was really cool. It was a really fun project. Enjoyed working on all the content with Disney, Star Wars, the Avengers. We did a Wreck-It Ralph experience, and we had some of our own IP. My favorite was Ghostbusters with Sony. That one was super cool. At the end, we did a burst of burnt marshmallow when you defeated Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. And today, I have a full-on memory of being in there with my kids defeating Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. So that was worth it, the whole thing. It was great adventure with The Void, and then I stepped away from The Void in 2018 and started a new company called Jump, which is a virtual reality wingsuit-based jumping experience, completely authentic. My buddy's a pro wingsuit-based jumper, and long story short, we were sitting around the campfire. He showed me cool videos of what he was doing, and I was like, I want to do that. And my wife's like, you're never doing that. And so I was like, well, I know how to make things feel very real in virtual reality. So why don't we take it to the next step and do something that's really epic and try to even build a memory around wingsuit base jumping without risking your life? And we're here now. That's
Excellent.
quick.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I mean, there's a lot to unpack there in terms of what brought you to where you are right now. But I'd love to kind of jump in, also no pun intended, to the experience of Jump and kind of what that is as people come into the experience. What kind of things are they actually doing?
Yeah, I think it's really cool to, and I've just noticed this over the last month. We had a couple come in that were 89 years old, and it was really great. I mean, they had an amazing experience. They literally don't have the bodies to go skydiving. A real parachute would probably wreck them. And they have tons of money, plane money to go do it and afford it, but they just don't have the bodies or the time to be able to do that now. And it was really cool to see them come in and be able to experience Jump. But the thing that really dawned on me after the experience is I imagined their grandkids or their kids saying, hey, let's go to a VR arcade thing and play a video game. They would say no. They would say, I don't play video games. Like, that's not. So people are coming to Jump to have a flying experience, not a virtual reality experience, which really kind of blew my mind. So we're able to capture this whole other audience of people that would never put on a VR headset and come to Jump. And so at Jump, you experience the full thing. You're not getting pushed into a wind tunnel that is kind of disconnected from reality. You go into, it's a full-on illusion. I just went and saw David Copperfield, and I came back here and I'm literally doing magic because you don't get to see how it's done. you go into the room, and a lot of people, when they step up to the edge, say, I'm hooked up to something, right? And we just say, well, you got a parachute on, go for it. So it's completely authentic. You step up to the edge, you see an airplane edge, and the airplane door opens, and the wind hits you, and you smell the interior of the aircraft, and then you have to push out, and the simulator catches you in midair with a mix between a suspension system and a wind system that you don't get to see. And then when you get low enough, the parachute deploys and it swings you forward into a parachute position. Toggles come down. You can control those toggles, and then you land standing up, just like you would in reality. The nice thing about virtual reality is you don't have to hike back up the mountain, so we could just put you back on top of the mountain. So when you come out to jump, you do 3 jumps in a basic session where you skydive out of an airplane, and then you do 2 base jumps. And the experience is a shared experience, just like my last company. So you can both stand in the airplane together. We could do as many simulator bays as we have, but right now we do 2. And you can see each other, you can talk to each other, you jump out at the same time, you can follow each other if you're good enough, and have a shared experience. It's really fun.
I mean, that just sounds absolutely incredible. So you described it, from the moment that you're standing on the edge of the plane. Can you talk about even maybe backing up of, I would say, like walking into the building and the way that you, like you said, you create the illusion, and there is the disconnect. You don't know when you're switching from, from reality to virtual reality. Can you kind of walk us through that, even just leading up to being at the edge of the plane?
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because if you look at real wingsuit base jumping, what these guys do in reality is they will get out their maps, and they'll do all this pre-work, where we're jumping, what we're doing, and where we're going to go to, and how we're going to get there. And then they pick out like the wingsuit that they're going to wear and the rig that they're going to jump with, the parachute rig, and they plan it all out, right? And then they do the jump, and then they, do other things and go to a cafe after. But we wanted to parallel that with what we're doing at Jump and do a digital version of that. And so the experience actually starts way before you even get into the building. When you purchase your pass, you're immediately taken into your account, where you can start customizing your wingsuit. So you can customize what you look like, what your helmet is, what your gloves look like, what you and your partner are going to be doing and hanging out. You can also, we're going to extend, there's a limited version of it, but you can extend what we call flight plan, which is basically like, hey, where do I want to jump from? Do you want to jump from Notch Peak in Utah, or Mount Eiger in Switzerland, or off the tower in Dubai? And then where do I want to fly from there? And so you can kind of plan that out. So usually when people come in to jump, they have gone through kind of this pre-process where we've done that planning. They get all the waivers and the lame things out of the way. And so when they come in, we check them in a lot like how you would check in somebody at a restaurant. They just tell us their name, and we check them in, and all of their settings and all of their preferences are ready to go. But I like to say that outside of Jump, all of our marketing is it's 100% safe, and it's virtual reality, and you're in a safe area. And then when you cross the threshold into Jump, we just start bumping it up to when, by the time you put on the wingsuit and you stand on the edge of that airplane, it feels real now. And the whole process of going from checking in to going up the ramp and doing the suit up video and then getting suited up in a wingsuit, the whole transition kind of always just kind of ramps up to that moment when you're going to jump, and then you can come down from that into base camp. So base camp is a really important feature that I wanted to create with this. I feel like a lot of virtual reality experiences, at least the ones that I know of, that you do the experience and they just kind of like slap you on the butt and you're out the door. And they're missing a massive opportunity, because when a person comes out of an experience like this, they need a moment to reflect on what just happened to them, especially if it is a experience where they've shared it with somebody. And so I looked at wingsuit base jumping, and when these guys go out and wingsuit base jump together, they jump, they all turn on their GoPros at the top, and they're like, all right, 3, 2, 1, see ya, and they jump and they all fly. And then when they land at the bottom, it's all high fives and smiles, and everybody's good, and we're excited. And they'll usually go get a coffee or something, go to a place, and they pull out their GoPros and they show each other what happened. And they're like, oh, I did this, you did this. And so we created an environment that we call the Limitless Pit Stop, where you can get a drink and a coffee, and then you can go into a room in base camp, we call base camp, where your video shows up on the wall, and everybody's video shows up, and you get to watch what you just did and have a conversation about what happened and how you made the decision to jump. And it's been really fun to see that happen in our facility, and we want to make sure that we maintain that. It's almost one of the most important pieces to an experience like this?
Yeah, I would imagine, because there's that immediate reaction and like you said, wanting to share that with someone, and that's almost kind of the ramp down of the excitement that you're feeling, and then you can kind of ease into back into your life right from there. So very
Yep.
cool. Yeah. James, I'm wondering if we can step back a little bit and, go from the time when you thought about this as an idea, and then that process to develop it, and maybe even some challenges that you faced along the way that you kind of had to overcome.
Yeah, stepping back to, I mean, we got our first round of funding in 2019, right before the COVID break. And I had actually done sketches of some of the things that I had seen and I had imagined for the way that it would function in 2016, late 2016. But one of the processes that I do that might be unique, I don't know if it is or not. I didn't know that Nikola Tesla did this kind of things with his sketches or ideas, but Nikola Tesla would say that we'd go forward in the future and then he would experience his concept or his product, and then he would come back and he would draw sketches about it. And that's what he would do. And so I didn't know he did that until after, when I showed people what I do, and they're like, oh, Nikola Tesla did that. But what I did with Jump is in late 2016, I imagined going to Jump and what that would be like as a customer. And the whole customer journey started with me finding a video of my buddy that went to this place called Jump, and he wingsuit base jumped the Tiananmen Mountains in China. And I was like, how did you even do this? Like, it's impossible to go do this. And you did this on the weekend? And so I go through this whole process of going and experiencing Jump in the future. And then I came back and I wrote a customer journey, a customer story, a review of the whole thing. And I found that that has really guided the whole company through this whole process. And if that was one bit of information I would send over to people to really hone in their ideas, because it directly influenced all of our marketing, how the product was created, how I wanted the customer to feel, what I wanted them to leave with, and how I wanted them to respond with other people. And I wrote this customer review, and it's really guided the company into a really cool place. So that's kind of like the very beginnings of that process. But we went from sketches to some industrial designs of what it could possibly look like. And I'm completely blown away on how close we are to the customer journey that I wrote and all of the sketches that we created. But through the COVID break, we built the prototype. And then from 2021 to 2022, May, we opened in Utah our first 2 simulator bays. And we've been running this for almost 2 years now. We've flown 15,000 people, and you can check out our reviews. Almost 90% of our reviews are 5 stars. People are loving it.
Are any of the reviews similar to the review that you wrote?
Yes. Yes, they are. So when you complete your experience at Jump, you get your video sent to you in your email, and we make it very easy for people to share that to Facebook. And a lot of times we have people come in. It's like, I saw my buddy's video of him wingsuit basing, but I was wondering where this place was. And that's literally how my customer journey my customer review starts. And then having that shared experience, being in there, talking to each other and flying at the same time. There's a lot of those conversations that are happening that were in that customer story at the very beginning. I could share that with you too, if you guys want to put that out. It'd be kind of fun to share.
Yeah. What would you say the difference is then in your mindset with what you did of going into the future, coming back, and then writing that review? And I would say it was a traditional way of, okay, I have a vision of what this will be, and I'm going to write down what that experience will be like in the future, because it seems like it would be very similar, but also, the way you described it sounded like it came out with a totally different output and mindset that drove the entire development of this experience.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of power. I know there's a lot of power in what happened there, and I've tried to replicate that for some other new things I'm thinking about. But when you write a customer experience that's like that, and you experience it so vividly, and I don't know if a lot of people can do this, but if you can experience it so vividly, and you can imagine all the details and the smells and how you felt and who you were with and all of that, for some reason, when it becomes that real to you, there's no other outcome than that to exist in the future. Like I've already experienced, I know it exists in the future. So it's just how long is it going to take me to get to that future? And it's almost like it's inevitable. And when you get in that mindset, I would be dumbfounded if the experience didn't happen because of like, what happened? Like I saw this, I experienced it, I know it exists. So why isn't it here? And I think that's driven me and the team and hopefully I've delivered that message and that vision to the rest of the team. I mean, it shows that we have the product now and it's very similar to what my story was. So I don't know. I don't know what the special sauce is around that, but it works. And I think believing that deep inside that you were there and that exists in the future somewhere, I think that is very empowering and definitely maintains that vision over months and years and however long it takes to get it done.
Well, I would also imagine that informs, like you said, a lot of those decisions along the way. Like I loved how you described when people go through it and you say, there's things that they never see and it becomes like magic for them. So how important was that during the design process to walk them through that process and have those things that were hidden so it was kind of like magic for them?
Yeah, that was, that was part of the vision, but also part of my experience with my last company because if you ever did the void, we never let you go behind the scene to see what was happening. Whenever you put VR on, you went behind the threshold. You didn't know what was back there, so you had to just believe what you were seeing. And when the walls matched up and the heat hit you and the wind hit you and all validated that experience, that was huge learnings for me. And we initially did that because we thought it would be fun. We're like, this would be like a 4D theater and you'll feel the wind and you'll feel the heat. And we thought entertainment, right? And I didn't understand that when you go that far with virtual reality, it provides enough validating information for the person to believe that reality exists. And so that was a huge learning for me through that process. But I felt like I didn't answer your question completely.
Well, it's magic. I'm not sure there is a great answer for it, but just understanding the mindset and the thought process to, I guess, even see it in the future to say, this is what we want the guest experience to be, knowing that there's a lot of things that are going to happen to them that they'll never know about.
Yeah, it's important. And the second part to that would be, I think people underestimate the psychology behind virtual reality experiences. And I won't name who I talked to in the past. It was a company that opened a bunch of facilities and they had VR headsets that were out and people could be in them, and they literally set up a bar where their friends could stand there and watch them do VR. And I told them, like, guys, this is gonna work. Like people feel vulnerable when they're VR and they feel like they're doing something stupid and everybody's gonna laugh at them. And so that devalues the experience. They understand, like, when you think that people are watching you and you think they're making fun of you, you aren't focused on what you're doing and you're not completely present in the virtual experience. And so it's very important, at least from my perspective, when you do these types of experiences, that you can't see where you're going. You have one truth. We want you to know one truth. You're standing in an airplane and you're about to jump out 15,000 feet to the ground. I don't want you to see anything else. I don't want you to experience anything else because you'll have that going on in your head too. And so that's part of that illusion is not only is it fun, but it also, like, psychologically allows the person to be completely present and completely in that virtual world and not second guessing their actions because they think they're either being made fun of or they look stupid or whatever. And so I think that was one of the really good things that we accidentally did with the Void and that we are intentionally doing with Jump.
That's a really good point because what you just described is like turning VR into a spectator sport, right? And those with the headset on are the ones on stage or playing, but they don't know how they appear to the spectators. And like you said, they can't be totally fully present in it. And that idea of being totally fully present, I've heard the term like suspension of disbelief. And I feel like that really kind of ties in. Can you talk a little bit about, I would say that feeling of being fully present and not even, of course you're aware that the outside world exists, but there, there's something that's happening, in our brains that kind of turns that off, and we no longer think about everything outside what we're seeing and what we're present with.
Yeah, that's the total power of virtual reality that people are just maybe starting to lean into. And I have another video I'm going to release about my ideas around some of this, but I'll give you a preview. I would do these presentations, and everybody's experienced Richie Plank probably. It's this experience where you go up an elevator and there's a platform. You walk out on the platform, the cityscape looks completely fake. But if you look up Richie's Plank fails on YouTube, you'll see a bunch of people diving through their televisions and diving on the ground, and grandma's like throwing the controllers and their face getting smashed against the wall. And it's funny to watch, but when you look at what's happening, that experience only lasts for a few minutes, maybe seconds, depending on how you go up the elevator and how you get on that ledge. So within a few seconds or in a few minutes, you believe this reality exists. I mean, there's one girl that's in this video that I watched where her sister pushed her a little bit, and so she lost her balance and fell forward. And she would rather believe that she's gonna fall face forward than put her foot out into empty space and stop herself. And she smashes onto the ground. And so I would always start these conversations about, with that video, and then I'd say, I'll challenge somebody. I'll give you $200, and I'd hold up $200. I'll give you $200 if you could put your arms behind your back and fall onto your chest without stopping yourself. Do it right now. If you do that, I'll give it to you. Nobody can do it. You can't do it. But for some reason, in a few seconds, you throw on a VR headset, no problem. I can jump right through my television. Like, I'll caution to the wind. Like, I believe this environment. And so that to me just proves how powerful of a belief system it is. It's not a video game at that point. You're inside of a belief system where anything's possible, and you can kind of be a child again and explore. And that's why I get a little bit worried when people are doing location-based things and they don't consider that, because people will do crazy stuff.
Well, and excuse me, I would imagine that relates to something we talked about just before we started recording, which was transformational experiences, right? And you have to be in that mindset, in that headspace to allow yourself to have that kind of experience. And one of the things you said was the world needs more of these transformational experiences. So how does Jump help us with that?
I love that you asked that question. Thank you. And I put a lot of time and thought into where I'm going with virtual reality and what I call hyper realistic systems and simulations. Is if you think about it like this, with specifically to Jump, if I was to go and say, I want to go wingsuit, I want to be a wingsuit pro, like, what does that take? That, from what I've learned from the pros, is it takes 3 to 5 years if you had the time and energy to do it. 3 to 5 years to train to do it. It's hundreds of jumps to get your A license, just skydiving. So you got to do about 150 to 200 jumps out of an airplane to get your A license. And then you can qualify to get a wingsuit. And then when you get a wingsuit, then you got to do another 150 jumps out of an airplane and skydive wingsuit. And then when you're done with that, then you got to put on a base jumping parachute, because that's different than a skydiving parachute. And then you got to go learn how to base jump. And so you do that around 150 times, go out to some big cliffs out in, out in the Alps, the Swiss Alps or something. And then you finally put on a wingsuit and zip down the arms and risk your life one more time to wingsuit base jump up off a cliff, and hopefully you make it, right? So that's 3 to 5 years. It's probably $30,000 worth of training, and I've got to risk my life hundreds of times. So that being said, with virtual reality and hyper reality systems, you're now able to compress that whole timeline into a weekend or one session. So when you come out to Jump and you skydive, you're getting a skydive session, basically equivalently of learning how to fly the wingsuit out of an airplane. And then we land you at the top of the mountain, and then you do a base jump. So we're able to take an experience that would take you in physical reality, if you could do it and you had the time and the money and the guts to risk your life that many times, 5 years, and compress that into, now you can have the experience right now. Like, you don't need to wait. And so when you think about how powerful that is, guys, in the future, I could see us, once everything's refined, having lifetimes of experiences, like my grandkids having lifetimes of experiences within a weekend or a week, where, I'm 48 years old. wingsuiting's not on the agenda for James in physical reality, but I can tell you I've skydived and I wingsuit base jumped Notch Peak 700 times, and I have a full memory of flying that location with several different people, and I know where every rock is and where every tree is, and I believe I have a memory of that without having to risk my life, and I got to do it in a safe place. So that's the power is I see us be able to shift into a place where like we can have these experiences, and not only we have these experiences, but we gather the learnings from those experiences. And if you don't mind me just taking a couple of seconds more on this, I have these keychains at Jump, and on the back of the keychains it says fear is an illusion. And what I mean by that, at Jump, when you step up to the edge and you feel the edge of the airplane and the wind hits you and everything feels real, and don't just tell me if this feels like any kind of business decision of starting something or getting married or whatever, everything feels real and everything feels scary. And it's your moment to realize that it's an illusion and jump past that and see success. When most people are suffering from stress, anxiety, depression, that fear state, they're projecting something they think is going to happen in the future, and they're experiencing that emotion in the moment where it doesn't exist in the moment. It's an illusion. And so my hypothesis is by having this experience at Jump, you can be in a safe place to experience that emotion and jump past that and see success. And that could potentially give you the learnings you need to perform at a higher level in reality in life.
Yeah. No, I love the way that you describe that, and the fact that when you look at doing things like these, you recognize the fear is the thing that is usually stopping someone from doing it, and then seeing what it is, on the other side. And this is just, one example. I mean, I can think of, a couple of things like in my life personally. One, riding roller coasters, like when I was, in middle school, like the fear that I had about that compared to the like level of satisfaction afterwards, and just being like, oh, that fear wasn't necessary. That was the thing that was holding me back. And then public speaking being the other. I actually remember those feelings being identical when I started speaking at conferences or leading workshops. It was the exact same feeling I had when I was 11 years old, waiting in line for a roller coaster. So I think that kind of the question, that I'm leading to here is the application of virtual reality and everything that you're doing in transformational experiences, the impact on society and in our lives. What is that far beyond the experience of Jump?
Yeah, well, I could ask you guys a question. Do you believe that the experiences you've had in your life create your perspective you have right now? All of your past experiences?
Yes.
Everybody just say, yeah, of course, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Right? So all of the experiences that you've had in your past have created your perspective on reality. So if you could have experiences that could shift your perspective on reality when you were younger, do you think you would be different now?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm putting 11 and 12-year-olds into an experience that feels real to them, that is releasing the same amount of chemicals into their body and allowing them to experience a fear state that they can jump past when they're 11 and 12, that I only experienced doing business and being an entrepreneur when I was in my mid 30s, right? So what if you can overcome those kind of feelings and that kind of stress in a simulated environment? I have to believe that that will influence how your perception of reality is in the future. And so I could see the learnings of experiences early on being able to shape the perspective a person has in the future. I would love to have been able to conquer some of these fears when I was younger, even if it was simulated. I don't think your mind knows the difference between an imagined experience and a real experience. And I think there's some scientific proof that shows that your body releases the same amount of chemicals, if not more chemicals, when you imagine an experience versus actually experiencing it. So I think that the learnings are there. I think that these experiences can be that impactful for an individual. I'm seeing it here at Jump already with the customers that come out. Some people are just like, oh, that was cool. And other people are crying at the end of their experience. So yeah, you have the whole spectrum.
Well, what I think is fascinating, James, when you talk about those 11 and 12-year-olds that are doing that, one of the things that I talk to a lot of people about is the concept of confidence, and whether that's telling your boss that you don't like the idea that they came up with, or, talking to an employee or whatever the case may be, that approaching things with confidence when you're not doing that, it's because you haven't done it in the past. You don't know that if I take this leap and, I'm going into an unknown area, that I don't know how it's going to come out. I don't know how it's going to play out. And so I'm not confident about it. When you get to a certain point in your life, I think you have enough confidence, you have enough experiences that you say, I can take this leap. I know everything that has led up to this point. I'm going to be okay. So if I just ask myself, what's the worst that can happen? And if it's not death, I'm going for it, So that's kind of how I read into what you're saying. Is that kind of where you're going with that as well?
Absolutely, yeah, guys. That's where it's at. I mean, you can't even start a skydiving wingsuit journey until you're 18. You have to be 18 to tandem jump. And then that's just somebody just pushing out of the airplane for $250. So I think it's just a huge opportunity. And we're early on with the understanding of all of this, but I can see the new education being experiential learning and not how it's traditionally done. Like
Mhm.
if you're in, so a jump, I like to say we ramp everything, right? So you're potentially in a heightened emotional state. You're in a focused, like 100% focused state, in flow state. And that is all of the best combinations of things you need to be able to teach somebody something. Like, tell me one place in the world where you have 100% of the person's attention, even if they're in some kind of course that they paid $20,000 for over the weekend to be there. They're still getting text messages on their phone, and they're worried about business. They're worried about this other thing and what this person thinks about what they just said. There's no place in the world that I know of that you can go and be 100% focused other than hyper realistic simulations. And that is going to be the teaching place that we have in the future.
Can you expand on that? How do you envision that, that being applied to educational institutions or even conferences and workshops and things like that to be able to deliver that?
I think it kind of comes down to shifting our perception of storytelling, because a lot of people are like, hey, how do we storytell in virtual reality? And I had a conversation and talked about this quite a bit. And the reality is, with virtual reality, you have to change your thinking. It's more like the movie Inception. You got to give the person a lot of tools to create their own story inside of the environment that they're in, not follow another person's story, because then you're separated from it. In virtual reality, it's happening to you. And so the more you lean into, here's the nudges of how we want you to feel, and here are the tools that you could potentially use to feel that way at the end of this experience, the more you start dipping into kind of something like the Inception, where you come out of the experience, you're like, you didn't tell them directly what it was that you want them to learn. They came up with the idea themselves, and that idea is what then drives the rest of their life to achieve something. And I've been inspired by my dad, my parents, other people in my life that have given me the idea, like, hey, James, you're onto something, and you have ideas that are great. And those moments, they're telling me directly, but I also see evidence of that in my life, and that's what's driven me. And so I feel like this, in hyper realistic simulations, could be a place, a teaching ground for a different type of method of teaching through experience that is curated for an outcome. So I could imagine coming to maybe other experiences in the future where you select, like, I want to feel like this when I come out, and it's not a guess if you're going to feel that way. It is proven because hundreds of thousands of people and millions of people have gone through the experience, and the scientific data shows that they have this outcome when they come out of these experiences. And it's done by curating the experience and then using real-time biometric data that augments the experience to create that outcome. And I could see a really clear future for that.
Mm. So, James, I have a question for you that I asked Josh a couple of weeks ago, and I think you're the perfect person to address this question to, because it had to do with a trip that I recently took to Iceland. Yes, Josh, I'm going to talk about Iceland again. But I was in an ice cave on a glacier, going down into an ice cave, and obviously the ice was all around me. You could feel the wetness on the walls and everything, and the snow beneath you, and the crunching of the snow and the ice beneath you and everything. And I came out of that experience, knowing about the attractions world and saying, could VR or could these hyper, realistic simulations ever truly, truly compete with the real world? And as I'm hearing you describe it, I'm thinking the answer is yes, but I also think Josh brought up the fact that compete is probably not the right question. So I'm curious from your perspective, like when you talk about the hyper realistic situations and experiences that you're creating versus the real thing of whether it's base jumping or going into an ice cave, like is there a comparison there, or is that just two different ways to experience something that, like you said earlier, like I didn't need a lot of training to go in that ice cave. I would if I was going to do base jumping. So I'm not even sure what the real question is, but I'm just curious about your thought of the comparison of those two.
I think it's a good question, and I think that varies depending on if you have experience in whatever you're going to go do, right? So, wingsuit pilots and skydivers, when they come out to jump, they'll always give me like, it's a percent like this, and we're hitting on the top end for skydivers. They say we're almost 100% on our skydive moment. Like I've done hundreds of jumps and it feels exactly the same. And the wingsuit pilots they're varying. They're saying we're somewhere around 80 to 83% realistic. But for the average 70-year-old lady that comes in here, it's 110%. Like it's full on real. They have zero thing to compare it to, right? It's just, and there was an experience that I did at iFly early on that got me really excited. They had done some kind of VR thing in iFly. It was just a 360 video that you put on a Samsung Gear. It was literally the worst VR experience. It was for its time, like it was probably like woo, but I was doing the Void and a 360 video. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get so ill in this because you don't have control in 360 video, which hopefully everybody knows that. But you just slapped on this headset and then they like tossed you into the wind tunnel and then kind of moved you up and down. And I remember flying, watching this wingsuit flying while I was experiencing wind, and I was completely blown away when I came out of the experience because I I didn't get sick, which was unbelievable, and I felt like I was flying, even though I was flying sideways at one point in the video because the video had turned around or something. And it really encouraged me for what I'm doing with jump, because I said if that felt even slightly real, like what I'm doing with jump is gonna blow me away. And one of the reasons why I thought that I didn't get sick is because I had zero things to compare it to. With the Void, we had to be really tight with what we were doing because they walk around every day. They know what walking feels like. I have no idea what skydiving and wingsuit feels like. So for me, it was great, and I don't think I got sick because my mind's like, sure, you're skydiving. I don't know what this is, so here you go. Like this is the thing. And then it really encouraged me with what we're doing with jump, being so authentic with every single moment. Like you are 100% there psychologically, so it's 110% for the majority of people that are coming through our doors.
Yeah. Yeah. So James, we have just a few minutes left here, but curious, aside from fear is an illusion, what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs who want to enter, whether it's the immersive experience space or in the attraction space in general?
If you're trying to build experiences and getting into this space, how I worked this through with Jump was I'm all about minimal viable products, getting to and proving things, removing your assumptions with data as fast as possible, and taking small steps. When I first started Jump, it wasn't the simulator and all of the things. It was just a headset. I had a headset and a tripod, and what I did is I created a scene where people could be on the top of a cliff, a very high cliff, and then I would put the VR headset on them and say, imagine being able to be on this cliff and then jumping off of this cliff and flying like a bird or whatever, going wherever you want. And that was enough to get people excited about what I was doing. And that was a minimal viable product. I didn't have the full thing. I wasn't charging any money before that. It was just something for me to help people visualize what it is that you want to do. And I think a lot of people spend too much time trying to get to the full vision of things and not just creating something that allows investors and other partners to see the vision. Because unfortunately, people do not see the vision that you have, and they want to see proof of something as fast as possible. So, I learned later on in my life that a lot of people don't see things like I do in my head. Most people will, when you talk about something, they will visualize text or they'll hear sound. When people talk to me about ideas, I'm creating like 3D renderings and like full 3D perspectives of everything fully rendered in high detail, and I'm walking through it, right? Like my mind is a little bit different, and it takes your ability to be able to allow a person to experience something really early on, and they just kind of work out baby steps from that. So that's my advice, is like get to minimal viable product as soon as you can, prove that what you are building is something that people want. And one thing I'll lean into maybe a little bit with Jump, because I feel like I'm cheating sometimes, because I did research on flying dreams, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world or where you come from. For some reason, innately, human beings want to fly. Everybody's had flying dreams. You are flying in some capacity. You're either jumping high or you're flying, or some moment in your time when you were a child, you had this dream. And going to a place where if you're going to build an experience or a product, know that there is a need out there, there's a want, there's a desire, there's a dream to do something, and build a product around that.
Well, James, you're right on track. I mean, my favorite superhero is Superman because he can fly, so there you go. I just have one final question, and it goes back to some of the things you talked about in the very, very beginning. When you talked about your dad being an artist and you kind of, understanding the art world, how much of that still influences what you do and how you approach things versus the technology or being an entrepreneur?
I mean, I still use those skills today to illustrate the dream and the vision to potential partners when we are looking at new locations or new concepts. I create the art. So, I have those skills from being in a design agency and then making everyone else look really good. And I just got to a point where it's like, oh, I want to make my stuff look good. And it was done making everybody else look like a million-dollar, a multi-million-dollar company. And so I'm like, I'm gonna make myself look like that. So I think there's something to be said about relationships and your own skills. Even if you don't know, if you're not a master class in everything, if you know enough to understand how your team is coping with things. I did video game development a little bit, like Flash web development. I worked with multimedia and different kind of softwares. I love learning new software, but I'm not a professional in all of those. I know how to do some things really well and other things I don't. But I can talk to a developer, understand what they're going through, because I did a little bit of that. And I understand what a video editor needs to do, and I understand what a designer, what their process is. And I've done some spreadsheets, but I'm not a numbers guy. And I don't ever want to be. So it's about those relationships and maintaining those over your life and developing as many skills as you can to be able to create stuff. When you look at creating a product, it's not just having an idea. It's like, how are you going to execute this thing? And what kind of team members do I need to bring on to do that? And it's really great to know some of those skills.
Nice. Excellent. James, this has been just such a fascinating conversation. Like I mentioned earlier, we really appreciate the opportunity to talk to you today. As we wind this down here, if people want to learn more about Jump, or if they want to get a hold of you directly, where would you send them?
Go to limitlessflight.com, and I invite you to come out to Jump. It's the only place in the world out in Utah right now. We are expanding this year, so you'll see new locations starting to pop up. We're definitely going to be doing an East Coast and a West Coast thing. You can imagine where those places would be. But these facilities are going to be even bigger, and they're going to be even crazier, and we have new content coming. So it's going to be really fun. So limitlessflight.com. And then you can look at our social channels. Most of those, our tags are Jump by Limitless Flight, and you can check us out there. We always update. We have a bunch of followers on all those channels and TikTok. So check us out there, and you'll get the latest updates on their social media.
Awesome. Well, like Josh said, this has been an amazing conversation, and we can't wait to see all the expansion that you're going through, because I think it sounds like an amazing experience. So, James, thank you again for your time today. And for everybody out there who's watching and listening, just remember, we are all attraction pros. Thanks for listening to the Attraction Pros podcast.
Make sure to subscribe so you can tune in when new episodes release. And even better, please leave us a review on iTunes.
For more information, visit attractionpros.com.